Greeting, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service.
Seid gegrüßt, meine Lieben. Ich bin Kryon vom magnetischen Dienst.
And so most of you are standing in a clump of trees on the male island. And all of you are grounded. In fact, continuing the last channel, it might even be a good idea to hug one of the trees before you leave the island. This channel on this island will be a short discussion of a kind of evolution you don't expect. But before we do that, I give you controversial information about very recent history here on this island. This will be meaningful or not, mostly for the Bavarians. For we speak of the king. And the king we speak of is Ludwig, who built a castle on this island. But wait, was it Ludwig? It's a French castle. Why did a Bavarian king build a French castle on this male island? And the answer is Ludwig was a bit confused. In fact, he was very confused. First thing that you should know, it is a good thing, but not well known, but that explains a little of Ludwig. His last lifetime was as a female. So Ludwig comes in as a wonderful decorator. That explains a little. The flag on his castle should have been the rainbow flag. But that's not all. Here's the big one. Ludwig's soul was shared with Louis. And Ludwig was convinced that his past life was Louis of France, King Louis, the one who built Versailles. Toward the end of his life, he actually tried to become Louis. So you would think what undid him was his esoterics. He was very esoteric, and he shared the soul of another king. This is interesting because these are the kinds of things that are remembered most profoundly in the Akashic record. If you're a big leader, a wise leader or not, of any kind of association or country, it carries over. For that is the drama that you remember. And it's not just leadership. It would be other kinds of things that created that which was most energetic in a past life. But if you were a queen or a king, it really brings into your life those feelings. Now it's interesting. As we look at this male island, we talk to old souls. And that means that every single old soul here has been both genders. Now some of you may deny it. That's your bias. But you have been both genders. And so this starts the explanation of what is to come. If all souls carry both genders
beide Geschlechter in sich tragen,
over and over on this planet,
wieder auf diesem Planeten,
it should mean that there would be
das bedeuten,
a
dass
great understanding.
großes Verständnis
And so in that understanding,
diesem Verständnis
you would have a much better society,
wird dann eine viel bessere,
much better partnering.
viel besser sein in der Partnerschaft.
But you don't.
Aber so ist es nicht.
If you look at what this earth has become,
Was aus dieser Erde geworden ist,
the planet is a male
so ist der Planet
gender
eine
world.
Welt, die vom männlichen Geschlecht
And so what has happened
was also geschehen ist
in the last century
im letzten Jahrhundert,
is that the balance has been challenged,
Gewicht gefordert wurde.
and that the female gender
Es wurde instabil und das
is
weibliche
starting to realize
beginnt zu erkennen,
that the male heavy world is not appropriate.
lastige Welt nicht angebracht.
Now, I want you to think for a moment in history
Ein Moment,
when this has occurred before.
das in der Geschichte schon einmal der Fall war.
And the answer is it really has not.
Es ist noch nie der Fall,
Not to the degree it has in the last century.
in dem es zum letzten
That in itself
das für sich genommen
is a kind of evolvement.
von Entwicklung.
But that's not what's going to happen.
Aber das entspricht nicht dem, was geschehen wird.
Right now,
Jetzt
there is still a battle
findet noch ein
for what many call equality
das, was viele
between the genders,
Berechtigung bezeichnen,
especially in the Western world.
allem im Westen.
Dear ones, I'm going to tell you
Liebe, ich werde euch
what
sagen,
is possible here.
was möglich ist.
How do I say this?
Wie sage ich es?
An evolving human spirit
Ein sich entwickelnder Mensch
will start to remember
wird beginnen, sich zu erinnern,
what it was like to be the other
wie es
gender.
war, das andere Geschlecht zu
Women, listen.
sein. Frauen, hört
Men, listen.
Männer, hört hin.
Can you imagine
Könnt ihr euch vorstellen,
how much more comfortable life would be?
wie bequemer ihr es hättet,
How much better societies would be?
besser Gesellschaft,
How much better business and government would be
besser es laufen würde mit Geschäften.
if you had the attributes, the strong attributes of the other gender as well,
Anderen Geschlechts gleichzeitig,
so that there would be wisdom
sodass da Weisheit wäre.
in partnerships today.
Partnerschaften heute,
Some of the worst ones,
in den schlimmsten davon,
this is controversial,
und
some of the worst ones
Punkt, einige der schlimmsten
are old souls,
sind alte Seelen,
for they compete.
weil sie konkurrieren.
They don't have a confluence
Bei ihnen
of togetherness.
fließendes
It's still gender specific,
ist immer noch Geschlecht,
but they compete
aber sie
because they remember so much of the other gender.
erinnern an vieles.
So what would evolvement look like?
Wie würde also
A
Entwicklung
difference is this:
der Unterschied ist die
remembrance
Erinnerung
with wisdom,
mit Weisheit,
remembrance with compassion.
mit Mitgefühl.
And when you then enter a partnership,
Dann eine
there is no competition.
wird dort nicht konkurriert,
Instead, there is coherence.
ist da Kohärenz.
One remembers the other
Der eine
and anticipates what the other needs.
und weiß schon vorher, dass der
In a society,
in einer Gesellschaft,
can you believe
könnt ihr es
that there would come a time
dass da eine Zeit
when there is no gender specificity?
eine Geschlechtsspezifik
It's simply humans applying for a job, humans
Jobbewerben, Menschen
going into government.
in Regierungen.
Dear ones, this
Meine Lieben,
is the evolution
das ist die Evolution
of the genders.
der Geschlechter.
And the ones that are going to see it first
Die das zuerst mitbekommen werden,
are the old souls.
sind die alten Seelen.
For you have been both genders
Ihr habt schon
over and over,
immer wieder
and will be the first ones to awaken
die wach werden,
to the coherence
die Kohärenz
of knowing what the other
zu wissen, was
is thinking and what it was like.
denkt und wie das
Men
Männer
will have a tremendous affinity
eine enorme
and understanding
viel Verständnis haben
of childbirth.
für die Geburt.
They will know.
Sie werden wissen,
Their compassion will be obvious.
Mitgefühl wird offensichtlich.
They may even have the pains of the woman.
Die Schmerzen, die die
The
Frau
confluence together
das Zusammenfließen
will be something new
wird etwas Neues
and noticed.
und es wird
in human nature.
in der menschlichen
The women will understand the issues,
die Themen verstehen
the fears and the anxieties
und die
of
Probleme,
what the male goes through
die mit dem verbunden
to
sind, was
try
die
to
Männer
provide for the family
zu versuchen, ihre
in the
Familie
ways
zu
that
versorgen,
males have done.
auf die Weise, wie
And
es Männer immer
together,
getan haben. Und zusammen
you will have a wisdom
werdet ihr eine Weisheit
that
haben,
starts
die
no more separation.
beginnt, dass
Yes,
keine Trennung mehr vorzunehmen.
males and females will always
Männer und
be males and females
Männer und Frauen bleiben.
for the purposes of procreation, obviously.
Die Zwecke der
But can you imagine
Aber könnt ihr euch
a sameness of thought, a
eine
gentleness?
Gleichheit im Denken, eine Behutsamkeit.
Dear ones, this is something
Das ist etwas,
that people have dreamed about.
wovon Menschen schon immer geträumt
A
haben.
coming together
Ein Zusammenkommen,
that's compassionate
das voller Mitgefühl
and not competitive,
und nicht Wettreif.
where there would be no separations drawn
Keine
of who does
Trennungslinien
what
gibt, wer tut was
and why,
und warum.
where history doesn't
Die
matter.
Geschichte keine Rolle spielt.
You simply do the things that help one another.
Die Dinge, die einander helfen.
Government will change,
Regierungen werden sich
and that will be obvious as well.
und auch das wird offen zutage treten.
This very country
In diesem Land hier
is sharing that particular attribute,
teilt ihr genau dieses
an attribute
ein Attribut,
that has not yet happened
das bis jetzt noch nicht
in other parts of the Western world.
eingetreten Teile des
Realization
eine
that the gender doesn't matter,
dass es nicht auf das
the
Geschlecht,
wisdom matters,
sondern
the intelligence, the humanism,
das Menschliche,
as it should.
wie es hier sein soll.
So there is the evolvement
Da haben wir also die Entwicklung
of human nature.
des Menschlichen.
And the old soul has the experience
Jeder hat die Erfahrung,
to make this work first.
das ans Laufen zu bringen.
So perhaps there'll come a day
Vielleicht wird also ein Tag kommen,
when this is no longer
dass
a male island,
nicht mehr eine,
but only in history
aber nur in der Geschichte,
is it considered a male island.
das dann als männliche,
And that is the evolution
die Evolution
of humanity.
der Menschheit.
And so it is.
Und so ist es.